What will be the fallout from the heated exchange between Jimmy Butler and Erik Spoelstra? We dig a little deeper into the details from Wednesday night and Erik Spoelstra's role in the blowup, plus look ahead to Butler's future with the team. We'll break it all down here on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Friday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However, you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com. A day later, Wes, after the incident on Wednesday night during the loss to the Golden State Warriors, and I think cooler heads have prevailed a little bit. We broke down the fight yesterday. We talked about how the team might respond, and I'm not feeling any differently today. In fact, I feel a little bit even more optimistic regarding the future of this team and their ability to put this behind them. I think these things happen pretty regularly. But one thing we did not look at following the situation itself, and we were recording this live from FTX Arena just an hour or so away after the incident took place, and of course we had to wait there for the media the press conference to take place, and we were just kind of thinking about what the situation was and what we were going to hear from the team itself. But now that we're kind of removed from it just a little bit, we never really broke down Erik Spoelstra's role in the situation, and I think it's worth getting into because you look at the footage, and not to start going into the details of the incident, having not been in there necessarily, we can't just look at the film and assume everything, but you do see certain things take place there, especially with Erik Spoelstra's behavior. He's clearly going at Jimmy Butler, trying to light a fire under him, and whether it's challenging him in some way, asking him to do more or to do something differently, there seems like there's pretty clear intent there. Erik Spoelstra doesn't do anything haphazardly. He's prepared for everything, every eventuality. He's been here a million times before, as he's happy to say, and has been able to say pretty proudly for some time now. He's been to the finals. He's had tension with his star players and great friends, and Dwayne Wade. Udonis Haslem, who came to save him yesterday, has gotten into it with Spo on occasion. Why would there be any different approach from a player like Jimmy Butler, who we know can be, if not necessarily confrontational, he likes to be challenged. He likes challenging other people, including his own head coach. And so when you look at what Erik Spoelstra did, I'm starting to think more and more that there was a purpose behind what happened, and then eventually it just blew up because, well, these are grown men with a lot of adrenaline in the midst of a really terrible losing situation against Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, the Erik Spoelstra thing is interesting because when I've watched now this video dozens and dozens of times over, and you're right, like the Jimmy Butler thing and the Udonis Haslem thing was really loud. I think that's what makes this so complicated, is exactly what you were talking about with Spoelstra, is that everything always seems so measured. He's so conservative with what he divulges to the media. He's very purposeful with how he approaches his leadership role as a head coach and as a leader of adult men, right? He takes that very seriously. And so for something to boil over the way that it did, it strikes you as confusing, as because I think one part of you is like, all right, this must be purposeful. But on the other side, you also recognize that all of those things of Spoelstra are true. What is also true is that he is ultra competitive, right? Yep. And that's something that players will talk a lot about. We don't necessarily see it on the media side. I thought it was telling that it took him 45 minutes after the game to come out and address the media. I think that was him cooling off, right?
Yeah.
Like, he is not somebody who can just address the media 10 minutes after the buzzer, right? He needed to cool down after that. And so I think there's been enough reporting around this now that it's pretty clear. Like you're saying, he challenged Jimmy Butler. It's like I said, did he challenge Jimmy Butler out of an abundance of adrenaline, or did he challenge Jimmy Butler in order to light a fire under somebody who has not been playing well recently? And basically, he is telling Jimmy Butler, What, do you want to fight me? And that's all Udonis Haslem had to hear. Oh, you're going to fight coach? No. How about you and me go? And you can read
Right.
Haslem's lips. Like, no, you and me step aside. We'll fight. I'll fight you. You fight me. And so that's sort of what I actually wonder if Udonis Haslem should have jumped in as soon as he did. Maybe he just got excited. Just, I guess, the emotions of a guy who doesn't play a whole lot. He's like, ooh, action. Let me get some.
Yeah.
But
maybe it's a good point though, because maybe Udonis is more like peripheral to the whole
Yes.
situation. Like
He
he's
was
there to
initially.
back up Spo. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's there to back up Spo. But the altercation, if you want to call it that, is really between Spoelstra and his star player in Jimmy Butler. And even if, again, as you mentioned, breaking down the film, you see Jimmy kind of walking away from the huddle. He's walking back towards the court, being restrained. I can't recall exactly by whom. And Erik Spoelstra goes out to talk to him, kind of pointing at him, talking at him, yelling at him. Whatever words were exchanged, we're not quite sure of. But clearly, they're still trying to take this to another level.
I think Jimmy was actually not. I thought Jimmy Butler at that point started to maybe retract a little bit. Like, he's walking away, and it seems like, based on his body language, like he almost thinks it's over. Like he's pointing at himself, like he's just kind of trying to get back onto the court. Like, this is in the middle of a regular timeout, by the way. Like, there's not a whole lot of time here, and I think Jimmy was like, "All right, I'm going to go play," and that was it. And then Spoelstra was like, "No, F that," and throws the clipboard down. Spoelstra, that moment where
some people have pointed out, by the way, some people have pointed out that he didn't have the clipboard in hand when it started. He got a clipboard and immediately threw it down to the floor.
Yeah, he's like, "I need something to throw. Give me a prop. Here it is.
I want to be demonstrative."
Okay. And it worked. Loud noises. Like I kind of start to think, like, I'm thinking he did it on purpose. I'm thinking he did it on purpose, partially, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be binary. It doesn't have to be black and white. Like but I do think in the back of his mind somewhere, he thought maybe this is something that I could, because the team was playing like crap, David. Like, they were not. We had been talking about it for a week. Where's the energy? This is the lull in the season. What's up with Jimmy Butler? Why isn't he attacking these guys? We had a report on our YouTube account by somebody who was standing behind the bench, who said that that Spo was encouraging Jimmy to take advantage of the mismatches when the Warriors were switching Jordan Poole, Damian Lee, or Jonathan Kuminga onto him. And Jimmy Butler was like basically saying, "I'll do whatever I want to do. I'm Jimmy Butler. I'm going to do whatever I want to do." And that's kind of what you and I were hypothesizing yesterday last night after the fight even happened. It was like, why isn't Jimmy Butler attacking this? If I was one of his teammates, I'd be like, go at Damian Lee, Chris Chiozza, Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga every time down, and he wasn't doing it. And so I tend to think, like, you and I know basketball. We're saying the same thing that we're seeing the same thing that Spo is seeing out there. I think in the back of his mind, he was like, maybe I can get this guy. Maybe I can light a fire under this guy's butt, because he obviously doesn't have it right now. It hasn't had it for quite some time.
I don't think the intention was for it to get as far as it did, but clearly the spark was there. And then once he became embroiled in it, well, he's just going to throw kerosene on the fire and just see what happens. Some men just want to watch it all burn, and that's exactly what he did. You know, he just leaned into it. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna test me? Well, let's see. Let's play this game of chicken and see what happens." And I think, again, to kind of reiterate what I said last night, my belief is that this is going to be a positive moment in this team's season moving forward. We'll find out on Friday when they take on the New York Knicks. As you're listening to this right now, we're less than 24 hours probably from the New York Knicks tip-off. A lot of players on the injury report earlier
including
today.
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler, his ankle. So we'll see what happens when they take on the New York Knicks on Friday, but it should be an interesting matchup. We'll talk a little bit more about the details of the fight, what happens next, and again, Erik Spoelstra's role and the future of Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat organization. But before we do that, just wanted to tell you again that this time of year, it's college basketball, baby. College basketball's tournament is finally upon us. If you haven't watched any of the games, you're so excited. You know, I had a friend of mine tell me, he doesn't really watch basketball much, which, that's whatever you're going to take from that. But he was watching the last weekend's games, and he was like, man, those kids really played. He loved watching it. In fact, he even invited me today to go watch the Michigan game. So that's just to see the power of basketball be able to influence a non-sports loving person like that is really interesting. So he's probably going to go to BetOnline, as you probably should, because you can go and find the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information. Want to bet on the Miami Dolphins? Why not? There's a lot of optimism here in Miami, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And we talked about it earlier, but NBA's Top Shot is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. You can connect with a community of hundreds of thousands of fans just like you as a natural progression of fantasy sports and a way to upgrade your experience as a fan. This is the future of what being a fan is all about. It combines the thrill of trading cards, fantasy sports, and the stock market all at one. Investors include Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Cole Anthony, Harrison Barnes, and several other NBA players because they know what a hot opportunity this is to get involved in. I've heard people ask, why should I buy a highlight? Well, when you can watch it for free, because you want to collect a piece of history. That's what NBA Top Shot offers you. You can start collecting now and be a part of something on the ground floor. You can sign up for Top Shot today. And the best way to start is by getting yourself a starter pack. You can pull an NFT of a superstar like LeBron or Durant or even Jimmy Butler. Maybe you can even find an NFT of the fight from last night. You can snag moments from the marketplace that appeal to you. But sign up today and take your fandom to the next level by starting your Top Shot collection today.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. You mentioned getting an NBA Top Shot NFT of the fight. I hope they put that available. They will not.
They won't.
That would be. I would join. I mean, I just joined Top Shot recently because we obviously have the promotion with them, and I'll be scavenging through my starter packs to just in case they do. Speaking of that fight, David, we were just talking about Erik Spoelstra and just the cojones it took to basically do what he did in calling out Jimmy Butler, and Udonis Haslem backing up. Like, Jimmy Butler loses that fight, right? I mean, first of all, it's 2-against-1.
Wait, like an actual fist fight between Udonis Haslem and
like
Jimmy
if that
Butler?
were going to happen.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I think I don't want to say that Jimmy isn't about that life, but I don't think he's about that life either. I don't think he's really going to throw down. NBA players in general, like 95% of them aren't really going to throw fists.
Yeah. It was like
Jimmy,
the hold me back. It was like it's always the hold me back fight. It's like, hey, and then you kind of look around like somebody hold me back here so I don't actually have to do something here.
Jimmy's a tough son of a bitch, no doubt.
Yes.
But I don't know that he necessarily wants to fight Udonis Haslem. I don't think anybody really wants to fight Udonis Haslem.
I think Udonis Haslem would have been down. Like, I think he would have been fine with it, and I don't think it would have. I don't think it would have ruined his relationship with Jimmy Butler. I think Udonis Haslem's one of those guys.
Oh no, he'll be cool with it.
Yeah,
he'll be cool with it. It's like, no, that's just me and Jimmy working through our shit. That's fine. That's how we are. Yeah. We're brothers for life. We gotta say some things. You fight in families. You get over it. And you move on. It's like, yeah, okay, right. I get it 100%. Yeah. I believe him.
Breakfast the next day, that'd been fine.
If he gets to that point, it's because he's willing to go throw down. He's done it his whole career. He's not scared of it, and I truly believe that he would have had a fight right there. And you know what? Let the chips fall where they may. If it gets captured and becomes the highlight on ESPN, it was anyway. So why not include? It's
crazy. I knew that it would be the highlight. I didn't realize it would lead the entire day. We've got Brian Windhorst talking about it on First. First Take is bringing in Brian Windhorst, their NBA insider, to discuss this fight. Like, that was weird, and it was the lead story this morning on the ESPN.com website. It's everywhere. Every podcast is talking about it. Like,
interesting take from Stephen A. Smith too, right? How well the Miami Heat organization handled it. From our perspective as reporters in the press conference, wanting to hear more of the details and missing out on the opportunity to go into the locker room and see that kind of tension up close. Yeah, we're not quite happy about it, but I can appreciate.
People loved PJ Tucker's response, being like, "What are you talking about? What happened?" Just kind of playing it down like that. I don't know if they handled it right. I guess the only thing I'll say is the one thing that I have been seeing out there in our comments and in comments around the internet and stuff like that is like, you know what? PJ Tucker was right. This was no big deal. Family business, not a big deal. Like, it's just that the cameras caught it. This was a big deal. The cameras caught it because it was happening. It's not like this happens in every NBA game and just like the cameras don't catch it. And I think going back to what we were just talking about, I think Spoelstra wanted it to be a big deal, at least partly. I think part of Spoelstra wanted it to be a big deal.
Not as big a deal, perhaps.
No. I think it got away from him.
He wanted to start. Yeah, I think exactly right. I think he started. He goes, "Ooh, that caught fire a lot quicker than I thought. Might as well just keep burning things down."
Yeah.
I don't know.
This was Daenerys at the end of Game of Thrones. Like this was like the end of season 8 or whatever season that was.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. I don't know. You see, you're making the point. You made it yesterday too. That it's a big deal, and yes, it's a big deal because it's publicized and it's going to be talked about. But I also kind of tend to think it's not a big deal in the sense that like these things happen all the time, like things that players hinted at in the presser yesterday.
That doesn't happen all the time.
Bam Adebayo mentioned it. He said specifically that our practices are liked, and you hear about this all the time at the NFL level.
Locker room. You and I have been covering the NBA for a long time. When was the last time you saw something like that happen on a bench in the middle of a timeout, in the middle of a game?
No,
that doesn't happen all the time.
So is it the situation that makes it a big deal, or the fact that there was a confrontation?
The fact that it was, because I would expect a team as buttoned up as the Miami Heat say that they are, as militaristic as they are.
Yeah.
Talk about Erik Spoelstra. Everything is on purpose. Everything that he displays publicly is very measured and on purpose. They understand that they are in the middle of an arena in front of 20,000 people. That is a different setting, right? You can't yell fire in a movie theater, right?
Yeah, I disagree with you.
You can yell fire in your own home. You cannot yell fire in a movie theater. It's kind of the same thing. Like that context of the setting that you are in matters. And I think that like if they were not so frustrated, they would have been able to hold themselves back, right? Maybe if they were in that public setting. I believe that they've had things like that happen privately in the locker room or in practice. But it's different because you can let loose in those situations more easily than you can do so in the middle of a freaking game on the sideline in front of 20,000 people and media.
Yeah. But that's where I disagree with you there. I feel like the environment of an NBA game is so insulated. It really is. Like you see players respond to fans and things of that sort. And yes, you'll have the occasional malice in the palace, or something akin to that. But by and large, what happens outside of the hardwood floor, they don't give a crap about, and I'm putting that as mildly as possible. Like they're there to play this game, and there is a bubble happening over that hardwood floor.
I don't disagree.
I don't think that they're necessarily concerned about that. They're not going to be like.
I don't think you're giving themselves enough credit. I know that they're not concerned about it, but they're certainly aware of it.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to like. Oh, I can't say that's a SPO because this guy who paid $150 a ticket is 20 feet behind me. I don't think they're thinking about that. I don't think it shapes or changes the way they interact with one another because they're grown men who have an incredible level of frustration and adrenaline in that current moment, and we saw it spill over. Not just the fact that they were getting their ass handed during their 13-0 run, but the fact that they were even being challenged by a team without Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, that they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers.
And that Jimmy Butler was playing like doo-doo. Like Jimmy Butler was horrible. And it was like an obvious solution, literally sitting right in front of you on the bench. Hey, do better. And he took umbrage with that he was called out. I don't know.
Right.
The other part of this is, should Jimmy Butler, like we're focusing a lot on sort of the escalation of it, but the initial thing originally, did Jimmy Butler deserve to be called out, and should he have been defensive when he was called out? I think is also interesting. I know we touched on it on yesterday's show too, but sort of how you spin this forward as well. I think that how Jimmy Butler responds to this, him in particular, right? Because I do believe that Udonis Haslem, like this is the most excitement he's going to have all year. I think he's good with it. And then Erik Spoelstra, he's like you said, he's been through stuff like this before. I don't know that Jimmy Butler's confrontational. I don't know that we've seen stuff like this before. So how does he respond to this? I think that's worth talking about.
Well, we'll talk about that, his future in the organization, and some of the concerns a lot of fans have in the next segment. But before we do that, just wanted to remind you that Built Bar is a proud sponsor of this show. You've probably heard about them. We talk about them many, many times before. And if you haven't tried them, well, what are you waiting for? You're probably looking for a snack to help fuel your workout, to get you in between meetings, or just to tide you over if you don't really want to weigh yourself down with a heavy meal. My wife sometimes she whenever she eats lunch, she gets a little sleepy. I've heard from certain people that happens to them a lot.
Me too.
It doesn't affect me. You get sleepy after a
Every
big
lunch.
lunch.
Yep.
Yeah. So you just grab a Built Bar. You kind of fuel yourself throughout the rest of the day. You kind of tide yourself over till you can have a better meal, and you don't miss out on any of the nutrients or any of the good flavor that you're looking for, because these bars are delicious. They're soft, 100% covered in chocolate. They're easy to chew. You don't even know you're eating a protein bar. It's more like a candy bar, and so many delicious flavors that you'll find the right one for you. Again, to help keep you going throughout the rest of the day. So go to builtbar.com. Go to built.com. Excuse me. Use the promo code LOCK15. You get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your next order at built.com. Just a reminder, you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show. We need that support. We want to hear from you. And if you want the best coverage available, then make sure you sign up wherever you get podcasts, especially to do so on YouTube as well. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about Jimmy Butler and his role and the fracas on Wednesday night. And, that's another point that I just as an aside, the conversation in that media room, as we were all talking about what potential, what's the right name for what happened on Wednesday night.
I liked Brouhaha. That was good. I forget who threw that out there. That might have been Ira Winderman.
Tim Reynolds. That was Tim Reynolds.
Tim Reynolds.
Yeah.
Ruckus.
Yeah. A combination of two. Fracas is another good one.
So Dust Up I've seen Dust Up a lot. That I actually might have used it in a YouTube description. I don't remember, but that's just that's classic newspaper writing, right? Like you never talk to your friends and use the word dust up. That's just written language, right?
Yeah. As another aside, this is another interesting thing that was sitting there. Like we were all kind of like carrion birds watching the corpse of Wednesday night's game and wondering what was going to happen. And there was a little morbid approach to it. I mean, as people who are interested in covering this team, we wanted to see what was going to happen and just talk about whether or not Jimmy comes out, what's he going to say, whether or not Spo comes out. And you could see Heat PR get just a little bit frustrated with the level of conversation. At least that was my take on the incident. But they work with these guys.
That's not what they signed up for when they wanted. They don't want to do this with their job. They're like, we don't want to talk about fights. We just want to shuttle in some coaches and players and then just go home. They didn't want to do that.
I wonder how soon before Jimmy makes himself available to media.
I wonder how soon Jimmy makes himself available to play in a game.
That's a good point, because on Friday it looks like he's listed as questionable. He's going to continue to have injury issues. Something we talked about recently.
This is also like right before we broke the segment there. I think that when we look back on the season, I know this is getting overblown, and I don't know if it's sort of a chicken or egg thing. Are we going to keep talking about it because we have talked about it so much, or are we talking about it so much because it's such a big deal? If that makes sense. But I do think that when we look at the end of the Heat's season, and I'm talking about the end of the postseason, whether or not it ends with an NBA Finals win or not, if we look back and sort of do what did that moment do to this team? I wonder, right? Because I could see us framing it either way. If the Heat go out in the first round to the Brooklyn Nets, which could just happen with or without this dust up, ruckus, hullabaloo, brouhaha. It could easily just happen now that Kyrie Irving is just available now for the Brooklyn Nets, and Kevin Durant is obviously Kevin Durant. We might, a lot of people would frame that as like, what, this moment broke the Heat. Like I think there'll people, but then also like if they go out on a tear here and Jimmy Butler kind of reclaims his bubble status and does all the stuff that we know Jimmy Butler is capable of doing, then we can say, well, that's the fire that led him and Erik Spoelstra deserves Coach of the Year for challenging Jimmy Butler to fight him. Like there's so many ways that we can end up taking this. We're not done talking about this.
No, it is certainly going to be a major incident. And it was interesting to see in our YouTube comments, somebody I assume is a Phoenix Suns fan mentioned this would never happen in Phoenix. They're just this great holistic group of people that love being together.
Chris Paul's not confrontational. He's never he's never rubbed a teammate the wrong way.
I'm sure he's never told Devin Booker not to be you can fill in the blank with whatever you choose. Yeah. I'm sure he hasn't gone into Mikal Bridges at one point and challenged him, or DeAndre Ayton, or somebody else. Come on, this is Chris Paul. This is his
Yeah.
MO, and he only does it out of tough love. And I think that's exactly the approach for this situation as well. Like, I think Jimmy was trying to kind of establish himself and kind of dig his heels into the ground against whatever it was that Spoelstra was saying. And I think
He
he was
got
frustrated with his
confronted.
own level of play. Yeah, he was
Yeah, I
confronted.
mean, he's somebody. You said this earlier, and it was a really good point, David. He says this all the time. I love confrontation. He has literally said those words to, I think it was
Yeah.
Rachel Nichols on the
Yeah.
ESPN interview. Like, I love confrontation. I seek out confrontation. And Erik Spoelstra was like, "All right, bet." Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
let's
know,
see what happens.
let's see what happens. And he did. And Jimmy Butler, I thought, responded really interestingly. And the more we watch that, the less I think Jimmy Butler is at fault for what happened. Because, like I said, it looked like he was trying to walk away, and that initially, look, if what our YouTube commenter said is true, and it's, hey, I'm going to do what I want to do. Don't tell me to take advantage of mismatches, even though it's the obvious thing that I should probably be doing right now. I'm going to play how I want to play. Like, for Udonis Haslem and his 3 rings, and Erik Spoelstra and his 3 rings, to challenge Jimmy Butler and his 0 rings and say, no, this is what we have to do to beat the Skeleton Crew Warriors team. And then Jimmy Butler to kind of, over the course of that escalation, kind of realize it, and then and then for Spoelstra to double down. I just found all of it very like so many dynamics there that we have carved into for the last 2 days here.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to feel like Jimmy Butler is less and less at fault, even though the initial fault, I think, partly lies with him. But it was Erik Spoelstra and Udonis Haslem who escalated. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Now, this is going to sound very pop psychologist of me here, but I wonder if there's a part of Jimmy that was in the least bit, perhaps maybe a little embarrassed about the challenge from Spo. Like, he had been up to that point the team's leading scorer. He is the team's best player, inarguably, but he's also a person who recognizes, that he struggled offensively, that without you remove his ability to get to the free throw line, his offense has been so inconsistent that he just hasn't been the same Jimmy Butler that we've seen in years past. And having said that, to be challenged by his coach after you think, you think everything's copacetic, and all of a sudden you realize perhaps it's not. And not only that, but that your actual level of play is impacting your team's ability to win. I feel like there might have been a little bit of motivation there for him.
It's a very astute point, David. Let me ask you this. Like, I'm not trying to bring up old stuff, but maybe you and your wife get into a little bit of a fight, right? Like, if your wife has called you out on something that you kind of screwed up on,
right?
Isn't your initial response to get a little defensive because you're insecure, because that you're kind of in the wrong? So the initial thing is to get defensive and maybe even fight back a little bit. I think that's 100% what happened to Jimmy Butler on the bench. He knew he was playing like garbage. He got called out on it. And his initial response was to get defensive. It's the same thing I do when I get called out by my significant other, by my friends, by my family. Like, it's an natural human response. I think it's 100% what happened there. 100% what happened there.
So it's interesting then, as we're talking about how Jimmy responds to the situation, is that in the heat of the moment itself, following the dust up, and again, Jordan Poole went out to score another 6 points in order to push Golden State's lead to 19. Then Miami responded on a 34-12 run.
Yeah.
And Jimmy only scored 2 points from those 34. The most of the offense was up to everybody else, but specifically Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo being aggressive, or taking their aggression to another level. So it's hard to parse whether or not that's Jimmy just doing what Jimmy does, where, he kind of takes that step back, as I've said so many times before, comparing him to LeBron in his ability to say, oh, this is what this game needs. I'll try to get everybody else going. Maybe that kind of feeds into what he was feeling in the first place, that, it's up to everybody else to kind of stand up and make sure that they contribute to the same level that he was contributing up to that point. Like, he had 15 points. Maybe they weren't, or was it 15 points up to that point. Not a lot, but yet more than anybody else. And that's why, they were tied with the Golden State Warriors. So I wonder what happens next, like on Friday. Let's look ahead in our crystal ball here. Nostradamus, we haven't heard from you in some time here, but
it has been a while.
On Friday, assuming he plays, or whether or not he doesn't play, but whenever he plays next, will he be aggressive Jimmy Butler? Will he take the challenge of saying, I do need to be the best player on this team. I need to lead everybody by example and be the top offensive player for this group.
I mean, we don't know, but the Heat are hoping that he is. The Heat
I
are
think
hoping he responds that way. Pat
I think
Riley,
he will.
who is in charge of this organization, is hoping that Jimmy Butler. We will learn a lot about Jimmy Butler based on how he responds. I thought we already knew a lot about Jimmy Butler. I thought we knew that Jimmy Butler was that dude. I'm not saying he's not.
Right.
But we are at least asking the question right now. And maybe that's unfair. Maybe it's just, hey, even the best players go through a little bit of a slump. And maybe that's all this is for Jimmy. It's a slump. But it's not like he's just not shooting well. He's not attacking. He's not aggressive. He's not playing his own game that he's been playing for most of the season. He's probably not going to make an all-NBA team, which is going to mean that he's at this point, right? Because voters are seeing this stuff right now. And his numbers have not been good lately. He's averaging 17, 18 points a game in March on low field goal percentages. Not good. Just pedestrian numbers by his standards. They need more, especially right now as you ramp up to the playoffs. I'm telling you, Pat Riley is looking at this. Erik Spoelstra is looking at this. They are studying this. Next time you take the floor, how do you respond? You haven't even scored 30-plus points in a game since January 29th when he put 37 up on Toronto. That was a great game. That's more of what they need from Jimmy Butler. That kind of stuff. That attack type of mentality. Not this. Not whatever last night was. I compared it to LeBron not posting up JJ Barea. Jimmy Butler not posting up Chris Chiozza. It was just weird. It was like that meme of just poking the stick, do something. Like, it's just, you're confused by it. Like, why aren't you doing more? They hope that he will.
I think more and more it's starting to see the pieces are starting to come into focus here, that this is exactly what the intention was, like trying to get him motivated, trying to get him, like, he's been in a doldrum, like, even as he's continued his scoring, mostly again from getting to the free throw line. He's been consistently good, but that's not enough. And that's what they need from this team. And whether or not they were just trying to provoke him as they were trying to get into the playoffs, I think it's a necessary step here, because last year you saw what happened, that he was kind of in the same funk. He hadn't been 100% prior to the playoffs. And then he goes out and he says, because he's so supremely self-motivated, this is a guy who's fought his way through every possible adversity to get to this point.
Yep.
Yeah. He is that dog. He is that guy.
Absolutely.
And yet he still couldn't get it done in the playoffs against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I wonder if this was some part of some conversation, perhaps from Pat Riley and Erik Spoelstra, saying, we need to light a fire under Jimmy Butler. And
they need that dribbling the ball in the hotel room in the Disney bubble. Like, that's like going, like, they want Jimmy Butler to be angry.
Yeah.
This might have angered him, you know? And you've got that quote from Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press, who had that conversation with Jimmy Butler, and he's saying, you know, I don't want to get too locked in, and you know, I gotta, you know, keep everything in perspective, basically, in so many words. And I don't know that bothers the Miami Heat, but I also know that the Miami Heat are like, all right, perspective is good for like December,
right?
But it's time to lock in, like, and that was
March.
That was what was so interesting thing. That was the interesting thing about the bubble, right? Was that they had to lock in. It was the only thing that they had going on with the pandemic and everything that was going on in the country back then. Like, they didn't want perspective. All they wanted to do was talk about, to think and eat and breathe basketball. And they need that Jimmy Butler, because anything less than that Jimmy Butler is not enough for a team that wants to win the championship. That's just the truth. He's not talented the way that Kevin Durant is talented, right? Like, his greatest skill is being locked in just completely. That's what made him the most valuable player in the bubble, right? And so they need that, for better or for worse. And I don't know, maybe this gets him there. I guess we'll see.
We'll see soon enough. Just as a quick wrap up to the conversation, so many people starting to suggest already, like this one comment from Shira, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, writes, I hate to say this, but Miami's got to start thinking about where they can trade Jimmy Butler after this season. And look, I just have to say, we were talking about this before the recording here. He's not getting traded. Like, we have to forget that possibility. Like, it's not that Pat Riley or Erik Spoelstra or anybody in that front office wouldn't trade Jimmy Butler if superstar X became available. I just don't think you're going to get any superstar that's a significantly better player than Jimmy Butler. This incident isn't going to lead them to trade Jimmy Butler, even if he winds up faltering down the stretch. There's concerns about his age and his contract and his overall value. A lot of people saying, oh, why would you even suggest trading Tyler Herro for Bradley Beal? Well, why not trade Jimmy Butler for him? It's like, well, because they don't necessarily want the 34-year-old with inconsistent
Yeah,
offense
a
to make
team
up
a
for the
team
loss of
trading
Bradley Beal.
superstar X, like you said, isn't going to acquire an aging superstar on a big bloated contract that you can't really build around. It just doesn't make much sense schematically for another team to trade for Jimmy Butler. And I look, I know that he's not playing well in March. I know that we just spent like half an hour ragging on Jimmy Butler, kind of, but he's still that dude, right? Like we've seen it this season, not that long ago. I mentioned he hasn't had 30-point games since January 29th, but we also just saw it in January 29th. He can be that guy. They just need him to be that guy. And I think partly this brouhaha was meant to try to find to awaken that version of Jimmy Butler with 9 more games to go in the regular season. Before we wrap up here really quick, I did a Twitter poll when you were talking about do you get sleepy after lunch? 77 or 78 now % of our audience says yes, they do get sleepy after lunch.
Wow, that's why a lot of more developed countries take a siesta. It's a key, to success. There, you take a little nap throughout the day, get a little rest, regroup, focus, and then you're ready to tackle on the rest of the day.
Yep.
United States is doing it wrong. I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest with you. But let's make the siesta happen here. I know they're already eliminating.
I take a siesta every day.
I know they're already eliminating daylight savings time, which is the stupidest thing in the world. But
to eliminate it, or that daylight savings time is stupid.
Daylight savings time, changing the clocks, getting everybody's schedule off.
Are you on team more like sunshine later?
I don't care. I like just get
you just don't want to
somewhere in the middle. No, because it
all
balances off.
Change
right?
it by half an hour, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. It all balances out. Then it gets too dark and too early. Yeah. It's like just leave it alone. We'll figure it out. We'll get our natural cycles back in line.
Stop trying to control the sun.
Yeah, like. It's been around for a while. You're not going to change it. It's not going to be like, oh, well, we're trying to get him to rise a little earlier. No, that doesn't work out that way. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking with us. And as we continue to break down the situation, of course, we'll continue to break it down throughout the rest of the season. We'll see. It should be the starting point for the rest of a great Miami Heat season. But thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Now make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.